welcome back, everybody. And Jake, do you want to do the honors?
Hi, this is Jake,
And I'm Cam.
and we've got issues.
Right, so today we are doing our pickups for March of 2024. So for anyone who isn't aware of how we do pickups, our pickups are not about things that we've just recently bought. Rather, we consolidate things that we have recently read or thought about, and we use this as an opportunity to showcase a couple of books each and talk about them and really just recommend them to yourselves as books that potentially you might enjoy as well if you like the kind of content that we cover. So, Jake, I'm going to let you start
Yeah.
off today. What's your first pick?
Okay, our first 5-minute pick is going to be here. I'm just going to choose. Do you want something kind of predictable or something unpredictable?
Let's go for predictable first and go for the unpredictable later on.
Okay, so predictable first.
Yeah, sure.
We're going to go with Kingdom Come.
Okay, interesting. You should bring this one up because my pickup for one of my pickups for Christmas
Was Kingdom Come, yeah.
was not Kingdom Come. It was Marvels.
Oh, okay, yeah, and I
So this
promised
is
that I would do
actually
Kingdom Come. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
So
right.
this is
Yeah.
good that you should almost like complete that duo since it's Alex
Yeah. The
Ross as
circle
well.
is now complete.
The circle's complete, exactly. Anyway, go ahead. Tell us a
Oh,
little bit
anyway,
about
we were
Kingdom
talking
Come.
about Kingdom Come
Hmm.
because of this preceded Marvels, right? So this was the thing before Marvels where like Marvel just went, dang, that's pretty freaking awesome. Let's do that. Get the same guy who did it too. So this is written by Mark Waid with art by the famous Alex Ross, and essentially it details a kind of dystopic future where superheroes are it's pretty much I just want to kind of encapsulate it into a couple of words. Like what would happen like 15 years into the future? What would Superman be like? What would Batman be like? What would all these what would all these superheroes be like? And what kind of world would they live in? Um so there you have it. This is one of the original. I have the original 4 issues, and then I think I somehow picked this up too, cheap somewhere. But I
Yeah,
have the collected volumes here, and
I
just to
think that's
kind
the
of
same.
give,
That's the same edition I have actually.
yeah, here's the lovely painted stuff by Alex Ross.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah, that he uses, of course. Lots of study, actual live human models that he
Mm.
uses for his Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and such. And the story by Mark Waid is really good. Actually, it's kind of like a page turner. You're just like, oh, I wonder what's gonna happen next, or what happened to this superhero in the future? Am I gonna see him in the next page? And you're just like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is great. You get so many payoffs here.
Yeah.
And I think we should probably do this as one of our episodes.
Yeah, we
Um,
absolutely can. But I want to ask you a question though, because with Marvels, and I mentioned this in our last pickups, I found that to be more accessible than Kingdom Come. Like I felt like I needed to know a lot more about some of the backstories of the characters in Kingdom Come than I did for Marvels.
mhm.
How do you feel about that?
It's up to you when you want to do it. Kingdom Come is rife with little, like it's pretty much an homage. It's an homage within a homage because
Yeah,
it even has references to its own characters the inside the book itself. So it's a fanboy's dream.
yeah,
When you read this, you're just like, dang, okay, I know. If I know all the backstories to these guys, I then want to know what's going to happen to them. You
mm,
know. So just let me know
But do you think?
when you feel like doing it.
Well, yeah, but do you think it's fair for me to say that Kingdom Come requires a bit more hindsight in terms of who the characters are, some of their backgrounds, compared to
I think
Marvel's,
it would.
which,
You don't really need that much.
hmm,
I don't think you really need that much to discuss the story itself and the
yeah,
art itself. It's just when you get into a deep dive and you kind of go like, "Oh yeah, they did that." you know,
hmm,
they did that because like certain little twists where you're just like, "Yeah, that is so
yeah,
part of continuity or part of this character's storyline," and they just had to include that, and you're just like, it's a love letter. It's kind of
yeah.
like a nice love letter to fans to say like, yeah, this is how this is how it should be done by people who know comic books.
Cool. All right, nice pickup there.
Yep.
Right, so for my first one, keeping it with DC, I'd like to talk about Wonder Woman Historia.
Ooh, okay.
So
Never heard of
the
this
this
one.
yeah, you have or you haven't?
I have not.
Oh, you haven't. Okay, so this is a relatively new release by Kelly Sue DeConnick, Phil
Mm-hmm.
Jimenez, Gene Hart, and Nicholas Scott. Now,
Sure.
this is an alternative origin story for the Amazons. So, if you're unfamiliar with the Wonder Woman lore, as in the audience rather, not yourself,
Mm-hmm.
um, this is not. Let's say I wouldn't say this is necessarily canonical um, with Wonder Woman's origin story, but it is a really interesting alternative take. And the reason why I wanted to showcase this one is particularly for the artwork. I mean, just this dust jacket is just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
The art in this is some of the best I have come across in the past, at least in the past year. Um, and it's also a really, I mean, it's Eisner winning. It won the 2022 Best Single Issue and Best Penciler Award.
Mm.
And it is very much it's a tour de force in terms of the art. I mean, I just want to showcase maybe a panel or two just to show you how ridiculous the amount of detail that's on offer here. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's brutal. It's a very it's a very unforgiving story about the origins of the Amazons and not so much Wonder Woman. That's the thing. It's very much about the background of the Amazons and how they came about, how they were created, um, the relationship between the goddesses and Zeus, and how they defied him in order uh, to bring about the existence of the different tribes. So, but the artwork is just it's breathtaking. There's no other
Mm-hmm.
way to describe it. Um, and the story as well, really interesting. Some great characterizations of some of the better known goddesses and gods,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a really interesting origin story. You know,
Mm.
I'm no Wonder Woman expert, but I do really like the character, and and as far as I can say, this is a good place to start for anyone who's new to Wonder Woman, because you really don't need to know anything else coming into this, other than
Mm-hmm.
that this is where she came from, or at least this is an alternative take from to where where she originated from, and some of the lore surrounding the story. So, or the stories to come, basically. So I absolutely recommend it. It's absolutely it's a stunning book, and yeah, that's
Yeah, that looks good, man. Phil Jimenez, I know some of his artwork. He's very much influenced by George Perez, the famous George Perez.
yes, yeah,
And
yeah,
and I think I could detect already, even though I haven't actually seen that book or read it,
yeah,
I could detect already the homage to George Perez's run on Wonder Woman when they redid it in the mid '80s, and also
yes, yeah,
George Perez's History of the DC Universe, which he had a 2-volume set of.
right. Yeah, in fact, I don't know if this is a homage to some of the artistic elements from Perez's work,
Hmm.
because yeah, there's similar. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the penciling is similar. Some of the designs,
Yeah, the layout.
but the
He's very
layout,
much a is a homage, but of course Jimenez is making a name for himself. But
yeah,
you have to kind of start. You could tell the influence of George Perez in Phil Jimenez's work, and also because I think Phil Jimenez did one of the After Crisis on Infinite Earths, which also George Perez did. Phil
right.
Jimenez did one of the Crisis series as well.
Okay, nice. Okay, cool. What's your
Yep.
next one?
Okay, so then we start getting to the not so normal, but we'll keep it normal for now. Uh so the next thing I have off my shelf is Ghost in the Shell
Very
by
nice.
Shiro Masamune. And this is um the original manga which I bought when I lived in Japan, the collected volume.
Nice.
Um and as you can see from the original manga, it has the color inserts along with the original black and white, and then you get some color inserts, of course. Um, and people will know Ghost in the Shell. It's been made into a movie. I haven't seen it yet, but I didn't. I kind of like the anime movie
Yeah.
version of it, and it's also been made
Oh,
into several series of anime. So
which movie were you talking about? The original
the Hollywood
anime
one, yeah, the
or the
Hollywood one that I didn't see, but I did see the original
uh
anime. One of the you know
yeah, classic.
things that really influenced me. Well,
Yeah.
Shiro's work I've known about ever since. This isn't his first work that I've picked up, but it's definitely I've followed his stuff for a long time. I was influenced drawing by his work,
Yeah.
and one of these days when we actually kind of you know devote an episode to one of his works, maybe Ghost in the Shell, maybe Appleseed, or Orion or Black Magic or whatnot.
I would definitely lean towards Ghost in the Shell because I've never actually read it. See, the anime movie was one of the first anime movies that I'd ever seen back in the
Mm-hmm.
90s. So, yeah,
Oh yeah,
I'd be
yeah,
down for
very
that.
very good adaptation of it. Although you will see that the actual original material is much more. It's richer. Well, the anime is rich in a different sense, and when you get to compare them, and you kind of go like, "Wow, they took these elements and made it like that," and it
Okay.
becomes its own entity.
Yeah.
Um, but this one is full of Shiro's kind of mix of really great design and really great character design
Yeah.
and mech design, along with his views on future society,
Hmm.
and how future society will kind of orient itself uh, depending on the technology that's coming up. So
Yeah.
you see that in a lot of his works, but mainly Ghost in the Shell and Appleseed will kind of have his vision of the future depending on what scientific advances kind of pop up. In this case, it's Major Motoko Kusanagi as part of a special police force that basically investigates different things that can have severe countrywide implications. So, um, but we've only got 5 minutes to say that this is a really good read, and
Yeah.
I'm glad I have it in its original English and also now in Japanese, so I can practice my
Nice.
Japanese on it.
Nice. Um, Before we move on to my next pick, do you have the English version that you have? How is that a single graphic novel or is it in parts? Because
No, those are
there's
in
a couple
parts. I
of
think I have
collected editions.
issues. Yeah,
You
I
got
have them
you
in
got
issues.
yeah,
They originally released them in like single issues, I think, if I remember correctly. I think
yeah.
Eclipse Comics did that.
Oh, okay.
back then, but I'm not sure. I think Eclipse definitely did Appleseed, and they should have been next in line for Ghost in the Shell,
Yeah.
unless Viz did it. But we'll see. We'll see if I ever dig it up.
Okay. Cool. Great pick there. So my next one, since you brought a manga up, is also a manga. Right. So my next pick is actually quite a new one, which I read very recently, which is Handyman Saito in Another World. So this is written and illustrated by Kazutomo Ichitomo,
Mm-hmm.
and it's an isekai. Now, for those who don't know what an isekai is, it's basically a the life of somebody from our world who gets transported to another world and literally lives out in a fantasy world. So in this case, it follows our character Saito here, and he is a, as the title would suggest, he's a handyman in our world in Japan, and he basically his job in the past entailed uh, being a locksmith, fixing doors and fixing shoes and things. A lot of different odd jobs here and there, but he took pride in what he did as a you know as an employer, rather as an employee, and what he finds is that his life is not what he wanted it to be purely because he feels very undervalued, unappreciated in his job, in his life. People don't really care about what he does or how he helps other people. And then on one particular day, he is crossing the road, and you'll probably anyone who's familiar with the isekai genre will probably go, "Oh right, we know what happens next." Well, we he presumably gets but knocked over by a truck. But it's there's more to it than that. So he gets transported instead of dying and that being it. He actually gets transported to this fantasy world, where he forms a party with some adventurers who go basically dungeon exploring, and the rest of the story are literally just vignettes of the fact that Saito is from another world, and they know that because he's very candid about it. But he uses his skills, which is the funny bit, as a handyman to help them dungeon exploring. So to give you an example, whenever there's, for example, a chest that they need to lockpick, so traditionally you'd think a lock picker would be a thief or something in sort of the Dungeons and Dragons lore.
Mm-hmm.
But handyman, obviously, he's a locksmith professional from our world. So he's able to sort of pick locks using tools that he's brought with him somehow, that's not explained, from his world, to help them in this fantasy world. And they're all sort of wowed by his skills. And the joy in this book is that he has a very sort of he has this complete role reversal where now everybody appreciates everything he does. He's almost a magician in the sense that he does things that no one can understand. He uses wire cutters to cut traps, for example, and people think, "Oh my gosh, how did you do that?" He's literally just
Mm-hmm.
using the tools he has. But the main story here is the fact that this is very much a character study of what it's like and how important it is to feel needed, to feel appreciated, to feel like you make a difference in what you do. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what I loved about it, because it's really funny, but at the same time there's a lot of tenderness in how Saito feels for the first time in his life. He's needed by people and people
Mm-hmm.
appreciate him. And that when you gloss over the veneer of the comedy related to the situations where he has to use his handyman skills to help these adventurers, you start to really delve into that deeper meaning that is really well translated here, in that we all want to feel like we're needed. We all want to
Mm-hmm.
feel like we make a difference to other people and that we're appreciated for it. And that's what I loved about it. There's a lot of heart here. It's funny. It's an absolutely fantastic read. I love this book.
I'll have to check that out. That
Yeah,
sounds
I would
intriguing.
recommend it. I mean, I think we've all been in situations where we felt we were worth more than we were made to feel. We are in work situations, and I think this channels into that feeling more than any other story that I've read, manga or otherwise. So, brilliant book, highly recommend it. And there's only 3 volumes out currently, so it's not hard to catch up with it.
Oh, okay, that's
Um,
a nice catch up then. Yeah,
so that's my
cool.
next one. Yeah, what's your next?
Well, for the next one, that one's gonna go totally on, totally on the other side of the spectrum from yours. Okay,
Yeah.
I've got Frank
Oh
Miller
man.
again with Jeff Darrow, and
Yeah,
also
glad you brought.
Claude Leclerc. This is Hard Boiled.
Man, I'm so
Um,
glad you brought this one up because I want to know more about it.
this is Tomb 1. Of course, this is the French version, which I got when I lived in France. And as you can see from the very first page, it is ultra gory and ultra violent, showcasing Jeff Darrow's skills, detailed skills of just it literally blowing you away with people blowing you away, people being blown away. Um, First off, you kind of see like really detailed layouts and line work by Jeff Darrow. Um, and colors by Claude Legris, which is really awesome here. Just give you a little bit of this is 2 large pages of carnage,
Yeah,
and it doesn't
yeah.
stop. It doesn't stop. It's just mindless carnage with our protagonist Nixon, who is supposed to be a private investigator. And of course, I'm not going to spoil anything about it, but
Hmm. We need to do this one for. We need to use this one for a future episode.
yeah, this one, I don't know if this came before his work on the Matrix, but Jeff Darrow was one of the original concept artists of the Matrix.
Yeah.
And he also did a lot of work like in different, besides in comic books, but in also different genres, like including some magic card designs, which are really cool.
Oh, did he? Didn't know that.
Um, but really, it's a story that's set in a dystopic future, flying cars and robots, and just this guy messing people up and getting messed up. Like it's by Frank Miller, so it's you know it's gonna live up to this title.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
this is the only.
It's
Uh-huh.
sorry, but yeah, Jeff Darrow though. I mean, I'm sure the artwork is going to be hyper detailed, right?
Yeah. One of these days we'll probably do this or something like that, but it's a good pickup. Like if you don't know who Jeff Darrow is, pick up this book and educate yourself.
Brilliant pick. I love that one. One that I definitely want to read myself as well. So my next pick is something a little bit different. So there is a channel that I follow, a YouTube channel called OmniDog, and he over Christmas he did a live stream. So it's a while ago now, and one of his co-hosts, the Comic Slayer, I believe her name is, and she's also got a channel. I'll put all of their links in the show notes for their channels. But they mentioned this book, Twig, by Scotty Young and Kyle Stram. I think that's how you pronounce the surname.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that really took me by surprise. So, do you remember Nostalgia Comics, the oldest comic book store in the UK that I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned in the last episode? So I was there. I don't know. I can't remember when it was, but before Christmas, maybe even. And I saw this book. I picked it up, and I thought it looks very childlike. It's probably for a younger audience, and I didn't think much of it. Then I was on the live stream with OmniDog and his co-host, and Comic Slayer mentioned this one, and I thought I've seen the book, I've seen it in a bunch of bookstores, so it's obviously it's obviously popular, but I don't really. It doesn't appeal to me at all. Like the art doesn't appeal to me. The look of it doesn't appeal to me. But having heard what they said about the book, I got intrigued. I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll just take a leap of faith here and I'll just give it a go. What's the worst that could happen? I don't like it. I'll sell it down. So I'll sell it on. So I'm happy to say I was totally wrong about this. So this follows basically our titular character Twig, and he's basically he comes from a line of um, I want to say they're adventurers, but their job is to basically venture out into the wilderness and almost map out the environments, if you like. So they go around, and his dad did the same before him, and he's joined by his sidekick, if you like. I can't remember. Is this snail like slug like creature? I can't remember his name. What was his name? It was Splat. His name's Splat, and they go off on a journey together to basically find an artifact, I want to say, but something that can help them to save the world from a cataclysm that's coming that he foresees. Now, it's very much a sort of a homage to stories like The Dark Crystal um, and Labyrinth, I want to say. So those kind of Jim Henson fantasy films from the 80s. And this is why I love it so much, because it's so fantastical. It's so well written. These characters are really nicely fleshed out. And it isn't childlike, although I would say that it does it could appeal to both younger readers as well as adults. But there's a real charm in the storytelling, the characters, the artwork that shines through. And if you enjoy stories, fantasy stories like The Dark Crystal, that sort of have sort of the characters going on a fantastical journey um, to save a world, and them coming across different characters along the way. Yeah, it's
Mm,
formulaic, but I will say that it is hugely nostalgic,
hmm
and I think that's part of its charm, and it's very well written and illustrated, and it's a very whimsical tale that I had a riot with. I really enjoyed it. I would reread it undoubtedly at some point, maybe in the near future. But I highly recommend Twig. It's one that you might pass up on because of its initial sort of aesthetics. At least I did, and I would say give it a shot. I think it's a really worthy read, a great book, and that's my pick.
Okay, sounds good. Looks nice. The colors, especially.
Oh yeah, the colors pop. Just yeah, really, really well presented story.
Okay, we'll have to check that out next time I go to a comic store. Um, okay, so the next one that we have is Persepolis, um,
Ah, yes, yes, I've heard
by
of that. Well,
Marjane
I know of this.
Satrapi, and this has been made into a movie, an animated movie. Um, I only read the book. I've not seen the animated movie, but it's very much following the style of the author here in this black and white, um, kind of cartoonish style, and it tells her growing up in Iran during the Islamic Revolution and what happens to her family. Very gripping book. Um, I picked this up because I think I knew that the movie was going to come out, and I was like, oh, I'd like to read the book before I see the movie, if ever. Um, and it's really, I mean, it is gripping. I was, I had never really known what happened during the Islamic Revolution, and to have kind of like a witness story to what was happening and how it actually really affects her and her family. Um, I really liked it a lot. It's this is not a children's book. There's scenes of torture and um, you know, uh, bloodshed and such.
Yeah,
It's kind of like, but it's a story that needs to be told, and the kind of, it makes you kind of realize what for me, it kind of makes me realize what can happen when there's whole scale governmental change or whole scale societal change, you know.
yeah,
Um, and I ain't gonna lie, like I draw parallels to this, to the art that she did to Art Spiegelman's Mouse. Um,
which I haven't read, by the way.
that's something that we'll have to cover. It's one of my
Hmm.
favorite works. Mouse is one of those things where it opened me up to autobiographical comics, because Mouse is also pretty much about him and his relationship to his dad, or mainly like what his dad endured through the Holocaust.
Right.
This one is kind of different, um, and there are parallels to it, but I love the fact that comics can give you this type of viewpoint, you know,
Yeah,
and it gives you this unapologetic um, way to kind of say, like, well, look, this is a window into another person's culture and another person's life.
yeah,
I love it when comics do that. I love it when it's when we break out of these stereotypes of comics being just for kids and just superheroes and things, and it gets to tell a story that's really important.
mm. And I like how you've chosen this one. It's almost a companion piece to, if you recall, our last pickup video, I chose Joe Sacco's Palestine.
Yes, Palestine.
Um,
Yes, that's right.
yeah, so I'm glad you brought up this one. And to be honest, it's on my list to read. So it's definitely a potential future episode for us because I've heard enough about it. I've had, I think actually, I've got other family members who have read it, which is really strange because I'm the only person I'm aware of in my family, in my immediate family, who reads comics. So it's one that I think it sort of it breaks genres, doesn't it, in terms of how popular it's become, and it's almost a piece of pop culture at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of people who you don't expect to read comics, I got interested in this because um, I read Mouse, like I had said, and Mouse was introduced to me by my college professor. We read it for our modern epic class. And so,
Nice.
like, this what works like this can be considered modern epics, and maybe, you know, when we have more time and we discuss these types of works, we'll go into that, because it follows the epic structure.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get on with yours.
Nice. Okay. Right. So my next one is a genre that I really really love in terms of film, and also literature in general, and that's noir. And this particular story is called Noir Burlesque, and it's written and illustrated by Enrico Marini. So he's an Italian comic book artist,
Hmm.
and he works on a lot of French comics as well. And as the title would suggest, it is a hard-boiled noir story from sort of the late 1940s, I believe it takes place. And it follows our main character who we refer to as Slick, and his sort of femme fatale, who is basically she's married to a well, I don't think she's married to, but she's in a relationship with a crime boss. Her name is Caprice, and she's married to or in a relationship with this crime boss, and it's how he uh, he has a history of crime himself, Slick, and it's about how he circumnavigates his relationship with this woman, and ultimately how he gets sucked back into this life of crime and has to face off against this kingpin who is also sort of, as I said, the partner of Caprice. Now, I'm
Mm.
not going to go into too much detail here in terms of the story because it is quite intricate. There's a lot of different angles to it. But what I will say is that this story made me an absolute fan of Enrique um, Marini's artwork and his storytelling as well.
Mm.
It is just so amazing. It's so classic. In how he pencils and the coloring. It's just it's something I've never really experienced before. And as I said, I love movies like Chinatown,
Mm.
um, L.A. Confidential. I mean, these are modern film noir movies, but stories from from authors like Raymond Chandler. There's so much of that is in this story, and I love how he uses color. So most of it is
Mm.
black and
Yeah.
white, but or monochromatic, and then especially with some of the women, they have these sort of flashes of color for their hair, and it's just very highly stylized. It's also very well written. It's a very adult story, so expect there to be a lot of nudity and violence. Um, and ultimately, it's a great yarn. It's a really nice
Sure.
crime noir story with a lot of twists and turns. If you like this kind of crime fiction, you'll love this book. It was so another YouTuber called Larry's Library. He recommended this to me last year. I'll put a link to his channel in the show notes,
Nice.
and I couldn't have been more impressed. So I since then I've picked up more work from Marini. I think his artwork and his storytelling is just phenomenal. I recommend this for anybody who likes sort of film noir or crime Americana sort of stories, and you won't be disappointed. It's a fantastic book.
Yeah, that looks great. That looks great. Okay, we're hitting the final stretch here.
Yep. So, what's your fifth pick?
So my last pick for today is an adaptation of a book. It's the book by Neil Gaiman called The Graveyard Book. I don't know if
Oh, I've never heard of this.
um yeah, of course we all know Neil Gaiman, who wrote The
Yeah.
Sandman, and also a whole bunch of different non-comic works. But this is an adaptation of his original book called The Graveyard Book. And it's mainly adapted by P. Craig Russell, the artist P. Craig Russell. And he's known for, this is the cover by P. Craig Russell, and he's known for this type of very flowing style of line work. And this is about Nobody Owens, a boy whose family is killed by mysteriously, but he somehow misses the protagonist, and the protagonist then wanders off into a graveyard and is taken care of by the ghosts in the graveyard and their kind of and also a vampire.
Oh wow,
um
I do like
and
vampires.
yeah, and so this is only volume 1. I don't have volume 2. And I have the original book, and I cannot for the life of me remember how it resolves. So I have to pick this up again and kind of look through and maybe try to pick up the second volume. This is a hardcover edition of the
Nice,
book, and it has different artists in here, including Kevin Nolan, P. Craig Russell himself, Tony Harris, Scott Hampton, uh, Galen Showman, Jill Thompson, Stephen B. Scott. Right, so they do the
nice.
different chapters, I believe. Um, here's an excerpt with P. Craig Russell's art. The previous section that I showed was by Kevin Nolan. I could just recognize just from seeing the art. I picked this up mainly because I like Neil Gaiman's work and I love P. Craig Russell's work. He's done some other adaptations of Clive Barker. Actually, I've picked up some of his work when he did some short stories by Clive Barker.
Clive Barker, as in the sci-fi author.
As in the horror sci-fi author.
Okay.
Yeah, and when you have somebody like P. Craig Russell do horror, it's really just eerie. Like this kind of like his P. Craig Russell's style lends itself to fantasy, as you can kind of see. But when he does like modern day horror and stuff like that, alluding to the Clive Barker material that I was talking about, it's sublime in its ability to kind of hit you.
Yeah.
So just to kind of flip through the book a little bit to show you the different styles that the different
Nice.
artists have. Let's see. Is this mainly by P. Craig Russell and it's then inked by the artist that I said? I'm actually not really sure, but if we ever cover this more, we will find out. Yeah, pretty cool book.
Nice. Okay. All right. So my final pick is I'm taking it way, way back, and this one is a pick from my childhood, and one that I recently well, not I don't want to say reread because I've never read it before, but re-experienced, I'll say, and that is Tintin.
Okay,
So
sure.
right, so I I have never read a Hergé comic, but I grew up with Tintin, and mainly the Tintin animated adaptations from the I want to say the late 80s and early 90s. And this particular, so this was gifted to me, this particular edition. So my brother was traveling through Belgium last year, and
Sure.
he picked this up because, of course, why not when you're in Belgium? And this one is Cigars of the Pharaoh, which is one of many stories from the Tintin pantheon, and I'm very much into sort of I love ancient Egypt and I love ancient civilizations. So he thought this particular story would be right up my alley, and I was always a bit reticent to pick up Tintin only because one, I wasn't really sure how I would relate to it anymore in the sense that I loved it as a child, but I hadn't really had any experience from it or with it for many, many years after that. But I'm so glad that he did get this for me because this is timeless storytelling. And the artwork, Hergé is just has a way of just imbuing so much whimsical nostalgia in each one of these panels, in that they are really just timeless adventure stories. If you are a fan, if you like any kind of pulp storytelling, if you like Indiana Jones, if you like uh, any number of sort of pulpy adventures, you're going to be right at home here because Tintin, in this story, and I'm sure with many of the others, goes on what isn't a particularly long adventure or story, but it covers so much ground in terms of locations, in terms of the characters he meets, the situations he's in, and the writing also really shines through. Not because it's particularly mature or complex, but because it's it's just really fun. The character Tintin is a great protagonist with Snowy and all the other sort of the returning characters from the stories like Thompson and Thompson, and like any good Indiana Jones movie, um, he goes, it's globe spanning. He goes to so many different countries, and you get to sort of experience a little bit of the culture as well. So Hergé has been, he's notoriously known to have stereotypes in his stories,
Hmm.
which has sort of given a somewhat of a bad name to some of his older works, or has coloured um, negatively some of the modern reception to his stories. But I would like to put that aside and say that this was very much a product of its time. But even so, it's still what I would consider absolutely classic storytelling today. You know, you will not you will not find you'll be hard pressed to find a better adventure yarn than some of the stories from the Tintin series, and Cigars of the Pharaoh is a great starting point. I think any of them are really, and I really had a lot of fun with it. And to be honest, I now feel that I'd like to go ahead and maybe pick up a collection of Tintin books. I know there's a couple of box sets around just to read more stories, because it was a real breath of fresh air. I'm used to reading a lot of heavy books with heavy themes and sort of characters, whereas this was just taking it back to what comic books were to me and still are, which is entertainment. It's a really entertaining story with some great characters and art. It's the whole package. So that's my final pick. And
Yeah, that sounds great. I don't have my Tintin. I have one hardcover copy of Tintin I picked up
hmm,
in France. It's I think the last one of his adventures. So, and I really enjoy Tintin. When I was studying in Belgium, one of the professors there gave a lecture on Belgian comic books because
hmm.
Belgium is one of the few places that I know where you can actually get a degree in studying comic books.
Oh wow.
Um, and I'm just like, man, I wish I could do that, something like that. I would just,
Man, I would
I
have
would just
studied that.
love that. I would just
Yeah.
love that. And I still remember some of the stuff that he told us about Tintin and how it's structured, how it's drawn. And if we ever get
Yeah.
into Tintin, I'm hoping that that knowledge comes back. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, those are some great pickups. I'm glad neither of us knew each other's pickups. We never really do, and so
No.
it's
We
good to
don't
kind of
rehearse this. We literally go into it.
yeah, and yeah, there are some books there that I just wanna read and or read
Likewise.
again.
Mm,
Um,
likewise.
but let's wrap it up.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for watching as always, and please like and subscribe if you want to
Yeah,
see more
each like
content.
and each subscription really helps us out. And
Yeah.
if you know people who love comic books and like some commentary about comic books, then recommend our channel to them.
Yeah, please do, because your support really means a lot to us. We're a new channel, and although of course we do this primarily for our own entertainment, seeing that other people are watching and enjoying our content means a lot. So please also,
Definitely.
make comments in the comment section. Give us your thoughts on your own recommendations, especially in these pickups, because we would love to hear what you have to recommend to us. Because um, there's always something new to discover. So please do. But
Yep.
anyway, until next time, we'll be back with another review or overview. So until then, I want to say thanks for watching. Have a great day and take care.
See you guys.